guess we'll leave it there for now. What's going on, my friends? If you can't read English, this says the blues. But music is the universal language, so I hope you heard that in the playing either way. We're talking about blues today, you guys. And there's a reason for that. We're talking about blues, well, there's a few reasons. One is because I love the blues. I'm a jazz-trained musician, and so of course that means I inevitably studied the blues along the way. I'm still a student of the blues, and I think the blues has influenced more music than most of us know, even if it seems unrelated. So the blues is definitely worth our time. And the other reason that I chose the blues is because we are trying a new voting system for what we're going to be working on in these YouTube live lessons. So typically you might find in the community tab on our YouTube channel, sometimes we'll post a poll and say, what do you want to cover in our next YouTube live lesson? Well, I've been working with the team and we want to incorporate our YouTube live lesson voting into the user voice software that we typically use for song requests for the app, as well as feature requests for the new app. Jamie Shirley, I hear your question from last time. New apps coming along. If you are not in the beta testing group, then you're missing out because those people are actually testing the early version of the live app right now. That means that we are very, very close to rolling something out publicly. So more on that later. But user voice is a service that allows people, a community, anyone who's involved and signed up for it, to vote on various things. And you can also upvote topics. So if someone voted on Africa by Toto, you really want to learn that song. It's a great song, by the way. My guys here are nodding their heads. Yeah, we all want to learn that. We don't have the rights to that one, unfortunately, but it's one of our most popular voted on songs in user voice. Somebody voted on it, and then a bunch of other people hit the upvote, right? So you don't even have to submit your own vote. You can see what people have voted, and you can add to it. The most voted on stuff floats to the top. It's a pretty good kind of democratic system. We also, the Playground Sessions team, try to communicate with you guys as well through user voice to let you know things like, hey, we hear you, but we don't have the rights to this song. Maybe in the future we will, and then we'll produce it. Or, hey, lots of votes on this, we're going to go ahead and put it into production, and we'll let you guys know. I want everyone to check out user voice, and I am actually going to, in a few minutes here, post a link to our user voice. Yeah, I'm going to send it to Andrew so he can send it, and he's going to post it into our chat. So what we're going to do with this is I'm going to ask you guys to vote on the YouTube live topics. And we're going to try something new. Instead of doing it on a weekly basis, what I'd like to do is have topics up that continue to get voted on, okay? It's going to take a little time to roll into this, but here's how I imagine it. I'm going to set the topics for the upcoming month, and I'm going to pick from the top 4 voted on topics. So even if it's second place, third place, even fourth place, it still is going to make it to our next month at some point, okay? So of course that means we need to get a month's worth of votes in there before I can do that. So we'll build our way towards that. But check out the link. If you need to sign up for a user voice account, I highly recommend it. It's free, and you do it once and you can then participate in any of the voting across the platform for app songs, app features, and now YouTube live lesson topics. Maria, one of our Playground Sessions team members, sort of did a soft launch with user voice, and there were a couple of topics in there. One of them was the blues. So I thought it would be appropriate to say, I'm going to pick today's topic from user voice, but I want to announce that we're doing that, and I want to get you guys active in there. So highly recommend you sign up for a free account. Make your voice heard in there. I promise we're going to check that stuff weekly, you guys. And so for the next few weeks, I'm going to pick from that. Once we have enough votes, I'm going to pick a whole month's worth of topics. And I'm going to continue to take these lessons through a course that you guys are charting, okay? I always want to be giving you what you want to be working on. So we're going to kick that off here. We're going to evolve it into user voice. Andrew, have you been able to post that to the chat? Thank you, my friend. Everybody, highly recommend you click on that. That's where we're going to be looking from now on for these topics. We're talking about the blues today, you guys. Everything I'm doing here is all based on a very simple blues scale. And that's one of the things that we're going to be covering in today's lesson. The blues scale. We'll get to it in just a minute here, but that's the gist of it. And you can put chords underneath. We can jam, right? That's it. We're going to start with a very basic idea, and then from there we can expand on it and get endless material to practice with the blues. Another thing I love about the blues scale is you can apply it over several chords, sometimes over 100% of your chord progression, which means you've got one thing to think about up here, that one scale, and you know it's going to work at any given time over a certain chord progression. What that's going to do for you is enable you to be an improviser, even if you think you are not an improviser and you never will be. I promise you right now that is not true, and by the end of today's lesson I hope I can change your minds if you're feeling that way. Well guys, before we kick into the blues scale, I want to go to the chat and say hello to you lovely people. Alright, Robert Atkins, let's do this. I'm with you. Wait a minute. Philip Anderson chatted. That's me. Am I looking at the wrong lesson here? I don't think I chatted. All right, either way. Here we go. I'm in the right one now. Elta John, what's going on? Sarah Pickles, S. Pick in the house. Lily May. Hey, Lily May. Lily May Music. Oh, it's not Lily May Pianist anymore. Does that mean you've started a new instrument? I always knew you would branch out at some point. You have a very gifted musical mind, so that's cool to see that evolution. Lynn Stewart, what's up? All is well with me, and you know what? I'm feeling better. I'm not sick anymore. I was never COVID sick, you know, but I had the sniffles. And you guys were sweet to ask how I was doing. I'm doing great. Let's see, who else is in this chat? Lynn Stewart. Oh, actually, looks like Sarah Pickles is sick. I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, unless your hands are sick, you can still get some practice in, Sarah. Great to see you guys. Hey, Jennifer from Cleveland, what's up? Akron representing here. Jennifer, are you as snowed in as we are? This has been nuts. I guess everybody in the country is, huh? Even in Texas. What's up, John Anderson? Nice to see you. Hey, Pat, sir. Welcome, sir. Diane Donkin. Brandon J, what's up? I'd like to give you guys a shout out here before we get started because I appreciate you being active here. Hold my beer. I'm not saying hold my beer. I'm saying what's up to this person named Hold My Beer. That's a great chat name, a great YouTube name. He or she says, hello, currently in Playground when I got this notification. There you go, man. I'm going to give you a free song credit, Hold My Beer, because you were in Playground Sessions app, and then you came over to our Playground Sessions live lesson. You are a true Playground fan and supporter. Hold My Beer gets a free song credit. And there's going to be more opportunities today, you guys, to win free song credits. Hold My Beer, if this is the first time, you're going to email support@playgroundsessions.com and say, hey, I guess I want a free song credit in the live lesson. And we will hook you up in your account. Charles Smith, what's up, man? Charles Smith says, I post regularly in Facebook group and try to answer a few rookie questions. Explaining a concept in writing can be tricky. Charles, you're touching on a really beautiful thing about our Facebook group. And thanks to, in part, to people like you, we have such a strong community there. For those who are watching here on YouTube who are not a part of the Facebook community, I highly encourage you to join that group because, as Charles is saying, students like yourselves are so active and chime in and help other students. It's a really supportive group and it's really inspiring. So thank you, Charles. Kevin Chrisman, what's up? Checking in from Virginia. All right. Ivan Fernandez, congratulations, you're amazing. Thank you, Ivan. Congratulations to you as well for being here learning the piano. Jeanette Meets, what's up? Almost didn't make it. I'm glad you did. This is awesome. Franklin E. Gonzalez Dwin, what's up, my friend? You'll miss the session. Too many troubles in Houston. Oh, man. I'm glad to hear that you're all fine, though. Yeah, I wonder if you've got power. I guess if you're writing on YouTube, you do, but I'm sorry to hear that you are experiencing troubles. Texas really got hit hard with this winter storm. It's unprecedented for that region. So I'm glad to hear you're okay. Charles Smith, gospel, rock, jazz, and country all have their roots in the blues. Absolutely correct, Charles. Thank you for that. That's just elaborating on what I hinted at earlier. I mean, especially a lot of early rock and roll. I mean, you're talking about Elvis. He's coming right out of the blues, and so many people beyond that, the Beatles, a lot of blues rock influence. Led Zeppelin, all the kind of classic rock, a lot of blues in there. Often, sometimes they're literally playing blues progressions or melodies that outline blues scales, but more often than not, it's at least indirectly influenced by the blues. I would even say, things like blue notes in a melody. You'll find that in pop music, sometimes even in modern classical music. All that stuff comes out of the blues, I feel. And so, yeah, great point. Great to point that out. Charles Smith, yes, I am referring to the minor blues scale. I mean, there are some variations, and you're right. Maybe this is the moment to jump into the blues scale. Maybe let's kick into this right hand treble staff here that's going to talk about this minor blues scale. So yeah, what Charles is talking about here, really we don't have the major third in that scale, right? So if we're playing a blues, we're playing a C7 chord here. Obviously an E natural is a part of that chord, but the standard kind of minor blues scale goes like this. Flat 3, not natural 3. 1, flat 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, flat 7. And then of course we'll repeat the tonic or the 1 on top. 1, flat 3, 4, sharp 4, 5, flat 7, and 1. And of course this works in any key, but I really love the key of C for many reasons. C blues is not necessarily as easy as C major. We all know C major tends to be an easy starting point because it's all white keys. Well, the C minor blues scale, of course, has some black keys, but it also is one of the easier shapes and patterns for your hand to lay on the piano. Some scales require some awkward hand motion or finger motion. The C minor blues scale tends to lay really nicely. And so I want to teach this to you guys first, and then we're going to talk about how to apply this in an improvisational setting. I'm also going to show you some left-hand chords that we can do underneath this to be really playing the blues. By the end of today, if we have time, I'm going to get into the 12-bar blues form. I'm going to talk about how to apply this across that form. But if we don't get there today and you guys are digging this topic, we can extend it into next week. For those who just joined, I want to quickly remind you, maybe Andrew can post it again in the chat here. You guys definitely want to request your YouTube live topics by hitting the link to our user voice form. That's our new way of collecting votes. All right, so blues scale. Let's talk about this in the key of C. C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, and C. I want everybody to get your hand up right now and try this with me if you're sitting at your keyboard. There are several ways that I would say are acceptable to, in terms of what fingers we should use to play this scale. It's a little bit awkward because sometimes there is a gap or a larger interval between the first and second notes of the scale, for example. We're jumping up to a minor third interval. So we're skipping some notes. Then in here we have F, F sharp, and G, all very tight and kind of squeezed in there. So you can imagine it being difficult to fly through the scale. And so we're not going to do that yet. We're going to take it slow. But here's how I like to do this. And some people have different ways. In fact, maybe I'll show you the few ways that I'm familiar with, and then I'll tell you which one's my favorite. Either way, it's the same notes, okay? So some people like to split it into two positions. The first position you could consider to be the first 4 notes. And with the fingers, you would play 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you bring your thumb under, and then finish it out in this second position. And you could do that with 1, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, whatever feels comfortable. But the idea here is that you would have 2 distinct positions. That's 1. Then shift by bringing your thumb under, and you finish it out. You could also go up and down through the first shape a few times without moving on to the second half. And then jump up. You can go back and forth between them. So even as I'm playing fast, I hope you can see I'm really just in 2 positions there. That's valid, that's fine. And as you expand this beyond 1 octave, it still remains the same. So here's your first, and here's your second. But of course, just like a major scale, if you're going to extend past the first octave, you need to bring your thumb under. So here's the first shape, here's the second shape, and then you're going to start it over again in the next octave. Put that together with no gaps in between, so my timing is even, and we get this. And that's just for fun. So that's one way to do it, guys, and I'm not saying that's wrong. What I tend to like to do more is to really toggle more between 1 and 3. Yes, technically, I'm going to be moving, quote-unquote, moving positions a bit more often. But what I like about this is that I can go up or down in the middle of a line and not be locked into one of those 2 sort of shapes that I outlined before. Let me tell you what I mean here. If I'm walking down doing something like this, I don't really know if I'm going to go up or back down. I'm not just playing a straight up scale in one direction, right? If I am, maybe I will then do that what I said first. But if I don't know if I'm going to do that, in other words, if I'm improvising and I want to be able to react to what I'm playing and maybe go up a little bit, then go down more, maybe up a little more, then down. If I want to be open to that, then I tend to lean more towards this style fingering of a toggle. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, and then maybe 4 if I'm ending, or 1 to continue on. Now, one problem with that is if you lean too much on that, you'll see your pinky start to fly up, and really you're not able to play very legato that way either. And so this gets into this territory where there's more than one right answer, maybe more than one wrong answer, and you can lean on what feels best for you. What's important is that you lock in this shape, these shapes, and this, the C minor blues scale is a great one to start with, I believe. And you can make any kind of pattern you want throughout that scale, and it's going to sound like a blues solo, you guys. It just sounded like I was playing a blues solo, and I guess I was, but really all I was doing was playing a pattern through that scale. And of course, I was extending that scale beyond 1 octave. So one more time, here's the scale up and down as we see it in the notation, and I want everyone to try this with me. You know what? Even if you're not at a keyboard, hey, what's the harm other than maybe a couple of weird looks from people around you? If you try this on a tabletop or on your knee or something, right? Let's get used to this shape here. C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, B flat, C. Now let's walk back down. C, B flat, G, F sharp, F, E flat, and C. Now I'm going to play the same thing, but I'm going to add my own little touch to it. All I'm going to do is play various patterns in different directions using only the notes from that scale. Ready? Guys, that's all it is. It's the scale with some patterns imposed over it. So I highly recommend everybody that is interested in what I've been doing so far, if this has piqued your interest, memorize that scale and then start to create your own patterns. And we've talked about pattern creation before when it's come to finger exercises, right? This is actually one of the things we recently covered. Warm-ups and exercises to get your fingers feeling more dexterous and independent and all that. We talked about a 5-note hand position, and you can go up and back down, but if you want more of a challenge from it, you can make up a pattern, something like this. Or, you know, it can be anything. And so there's nothing different about that compared to what we're doing here on the C minor blues scale, except for it's not just a 5-note position. There's gaps, there's weird shapes, and it extends an octave or beyond. Highly recommend you guys sit with that for a long time. You can make up a pattern that is simple. That works. Do it again. Now jump up. C blues scale. I'm going to keep this on the screen here, but I want to briefly check in with you guys, and I want to see how we're doing so far. What's up, Diane from the UK? Hey. Wayne Williams, what's up, my friend? Lily Mae also plays ukulele, kalimba, and now learning guitar. That's what I'm talking about, Lily Mae. You are an inspiration. I love that. You can't get enough of music, and that inspires me too. What's up, Robert Simonoff in NorCal? Sup, bruh? Iman Boyle, what's up, my friend? Couldn't resist the blues. I love that. I'm glad you're here with us. Peter Ray, hey, from the UK. What's up, my friend? Oh, Lily, don't forget vocals. That's right. Thanks, Sarah. Sling Fire Master. Man, that's a name. I'm intrigued. Sling Fire Master says, this is so cool. Thank you, my friend. Is this your first time joining a Playground YouTube lesson? Hey, Kathy Hughes from Winnipeg. Loved last week, so I came back. That's what I'm talking about. I love it. Roger in Florida. No snow. Good for you, my friend. Jarek Anthony, can we get a blues category in the song store? Hey, that's actually a great question. You know, I would love to see a blues category in the song store. There's not a hard rule about this, but typically when we get to a certain amount of songs that would be in a category, if there's enough of them, we create that category. If you guys are really loving the blues, I'm going to one more time plug User Voice, because not only can you vote on the YouTube Live topics that we cover each Wednesday, but you can also vote on the songs that we put in the song store. How cool would it be if we got together and flooded User Voice with requests for blues songs? I'm not trying to tip the scales unfairly, but hey, if you guys want it, you can request it and you'll get it if there's enough. Once we see enough blues in there, I promise we will add that category. I also can't wait for you guys to check out the new app that's coming out soon. A lot of good stuff in there as far as navigating through the song store and the app, things like that. Diane Duncan, country music is my favorite. A lot of country comes from the blues. A lot of country. There's a lot of similarities there. Jennifer says, what is the blues scale? I know I'm catching up here a bit in the chat, so maybe I've already answered it. But the blues scale is defined in part by a few elements, but I would say the most important part would be the fourth, the fifth, and that note in between. So Charles Smith pointed out earlier, hey, isn't that the minor blues scale? The minor blues scale is so similar to a scale called the minor pentatonic scale. The pentatonic scale looks like this. Kind of sounds exactly like the blues scale, right? Except one very important note, what is often referred to as a blue note. Coincidence? I don't think so, right? What the blue note is it kind of is that stepping stone between the fourth and the fifth of the scale. So we have a minor pentatonic scale, which is often used in Eastern music. With the blues, I would say the key differentiator is going to be that F sharp in there, that blue note. And you'll often see me really accentuating that blue note when I'm improvising within the blues scale. You'll see me do stuff like this. That's really where it gets a lot of that character. So you could think about the blues scale simply as minor pentatonic with that sharp 4 or that flat 5. And there's a bit more to it, but I think we can leave it for there. Elton John says, so if we convert this to F major, would B flat be the fourth note? Heck yeah, that's a great question, and so let's talk a little bit about that. Elton John, Oh, I see Playground already responded. Andrew's quick. But B flat is the fourth note in the key of F major. So in that sense, you're right. But remember, if we're not talking about the major scale and instead we're talking about the blues scale, then technically the fourth note in that scale would be that blue note. I hope I'm not confusing things here. But there's a difference between the fourth scale degree in a major scale and the fourth note of a blues scale. Let's see here. Jennifer says, are there more blues and jazz scales, or is this it? There definitely are more. I should say there's definitely variations on that. For example, in this classic minor blues scale, there is not a natural third. However, when I'm playing the blues, you better believe I'm going back and forth between that minor third and that major third. I will also play a C7 chord, which has that E natural in it. And either way, I will either play an E flat and or an E natural. Right? So I wouldn't say that that's a new scale. But I will say that it's an important variation that you should have at your fingertips. You have your basic minor blues scale, and then you can vary it a bit. You can toggle between that flat third and the natural third. I would also, in the same fashion, suggest that you can use the natural seventh as well. I wouldn't land on it like the major third. I wouldn't land on it like that. But you can definitely use it as a passing tone to get either from C down to B flat, or from B flat up to C. See that? And so I'll give you an example here. I'll play a little bit around with that, and I'm going to try and use the minor blues scale that we see on screen with some E naturals as well, and a couple of B natural passing tones as well. You know, and I actually did another one that I didn't even think of, but sometimes I'll add the natural six in there as well when I'm playing the blues. Now we're getting kind of into the bebop scale, okay? So I don't want to get too deep into scales for today, but to answer your question in a short fashion, there definitely are more things to consider. And on the strictly jazz end, there's a whole bunch of other crazy scales that we can do. Right, that's another one. But again, guys, let your voice be heard and use your voice. Let me know what you guys want to learn, and we'll bring it to you. All right. Blues, blues, blues. What's up, Pat Rolfe? Joanne Hayes. How does the boogie woogie fit into this topic? A fantastic question. Boogie woogie, I won't say I'm an expert on this stuff, but in my experience, when people refer to boogie woogie, they tend to refer to a certain kind of blues swing music that is often defined by a riff that is in the bass line. Would you agree with that, Andrew?
Yeah.
It's kind of like this. Yeah, I think of a boogie woogie as something like this, and you kind of have this classic like Charleston rhythm. Right, something like that. So I categorize it kind of by that left-hand riff. Now I was doing it in octaves there, so I could kind of get it feeling more beefy and also get that swing going a bit more. Blue notes, that's what those are, not mistakes. But you know, there's also a simpler way to do that. We can keep it within one octave and just essentially outline this C7 chord. That's all I'm doing. And I have this passing tone of A that walks us up to the B flat and back down. So that's actually worthwhile, you guys, to practice. If you can outline a C7 chord, first if you can play a C7 chord, C major with a B flat. And essentially what we're doing is walking through that, almost like it's a broken chord, but it's more of a melodic riff than an ostinato. And it would just outline it on the way up. And then we play this A to kind of bridge us up to the B flat. And then we walk right back down the same path, and that's just going to repeat. So, for those of you who are at your keyboards right now, Joanne Hayes, I hope you are. This is a great question. Then why don't you get your left hand up and try this with me? Again, a couple ways to finger this, but I tend to like something like this. Where you get the first 4 notes in one position, bring your 2 finger up, and back down. Okay? Now, you can do the same thing on the next chord, and we'll get into more of this in a bit here, but the 4 chord in the blues, if we're a C7 here, we would then go to an F7. And we can do the same pattern, you guys. And then jump back to C, same thing. Okay? That's kind of what I think of, at least as shorthand for boogie woogie. And you're going to get a lot of that like swing 8th note on every beat a lot of times, like this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of that old school swing, that old school jazz. I hope that's enough of an answer to get you excited about that. I would say dig into that kind of a bass line riff, and then you can do that blues scale on top of that, you guys. Look at this. Perfect, but that's the idea. All right, let's keep things moving here. Diane just voted on Song Source. Sweet. Thank you, Diane. Aaron Atta, what's up? How can I accompany the blues scale so it won't be bored when practicing? Thank you for that tee up, because what I'd like to do now is add a left hand into our notation. So let's talk about this. What we're seeing on screen now is the same scale in the right hand, up and down, and then we just do it again, up and down. The only other difference is that it's up an octave, and that's so that we can make room for our left hand. So before we get into the left hand, let's walk through up here what we have. Right? And then we just do that again. In the left hand, there's several ways we can do this, but this is a really classic voicing, especially in jazz music, for a blues progression, specifically the 1 chord to the 4 chord. So here's what's written here. And we're just going to keep it in the top system for now. You see a C7 chord symbol underneath that, but these notes are E, B flat, and C. Try that with me, guys. There it is, C7. Now check this out. When we go to the F7, that's all I'm doing. Still have a C up here. The other 2 notes literally just moved down by half steps. And this is an inversion of an F7 chord. So I highly recommend this to any piano player out here who is interested in learning how to comp or accompany what you're doing in the right hand with your left hand chords. Because this to this, it really can't get much easier. When you're talking about moving from a chord that is traditionally spelled like this, and then moving it up to here, it's so much easier to do it like this. So I really want you guys to take away not only that chord progression, but that specific voicing, okay? It's kind of like a C7 over E, at least for the piano voicing, and then an F7 over E flat. Now this is something that's really cool that you can do underneath your blues scale. And I've written it in a way where this is one of many, many, many options of how it could go down. I would say this is on the simpler side. We have quarter notes in the right hand, something like this. Now 4 chord. And again, we'll just leave it on the top 4 measures for now. Now, what if I wanted to switch the chords quicker? Does that change everything? Do I have to do a different scale or time the scale differently? No, you don't. It's still going to work. Check it out. I'll go to the 4 chord now. Now back to 1 and 4. Sure, why not? Right? It all works. Guess what? Let's now look ahead to the 5th measure on screen. G7 in the left hand. I'm going to still follow the same formula of how I'm voicing this. So here's the C7, here's the F7, here's G7. It's right there. F, B, and D. And then from here, it's very easy to get back to C7. So this is not a 12-bar blues. This is just 8 measures. But what we have here is essentially a basic arrangement that uses the 3 chords that you find in a blues, the 1, the 4, and the 5. And they all happen to be dominant. So, ding, 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 freeze, pop quiz time. Seeing if Aiden is on his toes here. There we go. What does it mean when I say a dominant chord? What does a dominant 7th chord mean? I guess there's a couple different ways you could describe it, and I'm feeling generous today, so I will see what you guys get. But I just said that in a blues, you tend to see the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, and they're all dominant. What does that mean? I'll give you a hint. When we're talking about a major scale, or we're in a major key, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord are not all dominant. Okay? They're not supposed to be dominant chords. But in a blues, they're all dominant. What does that mean? What does it mean if a chord is dominant? Looking for the first 3 correct answers here. Yes. And as you guys are typing, I'm going to play a little bit of blues here. And who asked the question, actually? Aaron Atta, that's right. How can I accompany the blues scale? So I'm going to just play the scale up here. Try and keep it simple, and I'm going to do all sorts of stuff in my left hand here to show you that you can harmonize it in a bunch of different ways. All right, I could play forever, so let me check back in on the chat here. I am looking for the answer to the question of what does it mean when I say dominant chord? The 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord in a blues are all dominant 7th chords. What does that mean? I'm seeing some answers come through here. I'm seeing Charles Smith, Mixolydian. Yeah, that sharp 4 tends to suggest, oh, wait a minute. Mixolydian is 5. Flat 7. Yeah. That's kind of the blues. You're right.
I didn't see that comment.
Yeah, but he's got a flat face, like he's like doesn't like Mixolydian. What's up with Mixolydian, Charles? Too bad. Right. Elton John says blues has flats and sharps. Is there a jazz scale? This is kind of a twofold question. I'm going to get to that in a second. I want to see who's got the correct answer for pop quiz. Elton John says 1, 3, 5, 7. Lily May says the 1st chord in the scale. Robert Simonov says the 7th is a whole step down from the 1, I'm assuming. Diane Donkin says built on the 5th scale degree. These all contain some truth to them. Robert Simonov says 7th. Elton John says major 3rd flat 7th. Brandon J says 5th note of any scale. Jennifer, the chord used the most. Ken Henkel, they all have a 7th. Charles Smith, the dominant chord wants to resolve with the tonic. I believe it's called the natural cadence. Man, all right. So you guys have a lot of thoughts on the dominant here. I'm going to say what I think. I'm going to say what I believe the truest answer is to that question, and then I'm going to say what answers I will accept from the chat, because a lot of you guys had, at the very least, some partial correctness in your answer. By definition, a dominant seventh chord is a major triad with a flat seventh. Period. And so I'm going to say that the truest winner here is Elton John, who said major third, flat seven. Those are the two most defining parts of a dominant seventh chord. So Elta's actually going to get 3 free song credits for that. Good work, Elta. I still have 2 more winners here, and I'm going to give 1 song credit to each here. So here are some other ways we could talk about a dominant seventh chord. For those who said 1, 3, 5, 7, you're on the right track, but it's very important that you remember that it's a flat 7. 1, 3, 5, 7 is I guess traditionally it would be a major seventh chord. If we don't designate that the seventh is flat, we have to do that, right? So the dominant chord typically is the 5th chord in a key. It is the chord that is built from the 5th scale degree of a key. However, that gets tricky when we're talking about the blues, because as I mentioned, even the 1 chord is dominant. The 4 chord is also dominant. So let me talk through these chords in the key of C blues here. The 1 chord in the key of C, C major, but we're flatting its 7th, right? Then we go to the 4 chord, F major, also with a flat 7. Now, when we get to the 5 chord, G, we don't have to alter that 7th scale degree. It's already flat. Because whoever said 5th, yes, Diane Donkin said built on the 5th scale degree. So Diane is our next winner. Diane, you get a free song credit for this, because technically you're right. The chord that is built from the 5th scale degree in a major scale is the dominant 7th chord. And that's why the G7 chord here still acts like the 5 of 1. And so I'm going to give you credit for that there. Just remember that here in the blues, we're using dominant chords that are not built from the 5th scale degree, so we have to account for that too. Pardon me. And then let's see here. They all have a 7th. I think is accurate enough here.
Which one?
I'm thinking of teacher Saeed's comment here. Oh, excuse me, no. Ken Henkel's comment. They all have a 7th. Again, we need to make sure that we're calling it a flat 7th, right? But then that would be true. All of those chords have a flat 7th. They're major triads with a flat 7.
I like Robert's answer.
And then let's see.
7th is a whole step down.
Oh, that's right. I skipped over that. That was a bit more, yeah, a bit more specific. So Robert Simonoff, I'm going to give it to Robert Simonoff. I think you're right. The 7th is a whole step down from the 1. That is actually very accurate. Let's look at that first in the context of the 5 chord, G7. This one is not altered. This one, as some of you already said, the chord that's built from the 5th scale degree is a dominant 7th chord. So here it is. Let's test this theory. Here's F. That's the 7th. Is it a whole step down from the 1 or the tonic? Well, here, tonic would be G. Here's G. The root, excuse me, the tonic is still C if we're in the key of C. Thank you, Andrew. But the root of this chord is G. So a whole step down from the root. That's correct. Now, F7. This is also a dominant 7th chord, even though it's acting like the 4 chord in the key. Let's test it. Here's that flat 7. Here's our root of the chord. Half step, half step. That's a whole step apart. Good job. The 1 chord even. C7. If we flat the 7, then it is in fact a whole step down from the root. So I think you're right, Andrew. Good call. We're going to give that last correct answer to Robert Simonoff. You get a free song credit as well. Great work, everybody. I'd like to get back to our notation now for a minute and just continue to answer the question from, I'm going to find your name again here, my friend.
Aaron?
Aaron Otto, is that it?
How to accompany?
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about here. There's 3 chords that we tend to want to use in the blues. 1, 4, 5 in the basic form. There's a jazz blues that kind of has more of like a 2-5-1 turnaround at the end. We're not going to get into that today. We're going to keep this straight up 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. And so, Aaron, at the very basic level, even more basic than what's written here, you can do root position dominant seventh chords in the left hand, if that's easier to visualize up front. And of course, I can't help myself when it comes to stuff like that. But left hand, you can really pick and choose between those three chords and put them in any order you want. Just remember that the one chord is going to feel like a nice landing spot if you want to resolve or end the song. And the 5 chord is going to feel, as somebody already mentioned, I think it was Charles Smith. Yes, Charles Smith says a dominant chord wants to resolve to the tonic. And Charles, the only reason I didn't give you a credit on that one is because, again, when we look at it in the context of the blues, if all of these are dominant seventh chords, they can't all resolve to their tonic. That would start to get a bit confusing. So we need to remember that C is still the tonic, as Andrew reminded me. And so that means really just the 5 chord here, the G7 wants to resolve to the C chord. But the 4 chord and the 1 chord don't necessarily want to resolve to their ones, all right? So I would say as you're improvising and you're harmonizing your scale, keep that in mind. Maybe play your 5 chord if you want to do something that then wants to resolve to the 1 chord, and then you could end it. And I like to do like a roll to when I want to end the blues. And then you can go up and play a high and a low C. And that's a little jazz trick to end a song. All right, guys, I think we have time for one more question. But I just want to ask if you guys have any questions about the blues or improvising or whatever it is on topic for today. I want to answer your questions.
There's a good one from Jennifer early in the chat.
Cool. I'll pull it up here. I've been looking at the direct chat here. All right, so, oh yeah, Jennifer, this is a good question. Jennifer asks, how close is blues to jazz to swing? How similar to each other? So this is an interesting question because swing, for example, is a word that can be used to describe a few different things. We can be playing jazz music in a way that is swinging. We can be even playing pop music, and it could potentially be swinging. Jazz music itself often swings, but it doesn't have to swing, especially when we get into some ECM style jazz or bossa nova jazz, things like that. We're going to see straight eighth notes a lot, which is the opposite of swinging. And the same goes for blues. We can kind of do a blues that doesn't swing. We can kind of do a blues rock kind of thing, you know. Exactly. That's that rock influence. The blues influence on rock tends to manifest in that way. Less swing, but harmonically still very close to the blues. So if I were to answer this question, I would say that blues and jazz music share a home. They both live in the same area, okay? In other words, they're so close to one another that really one of the main differences is going to come with time, the evolution of the art form. Blues is really the roots of jazz music. And so you're going to see a lot of 1-4, you're going to see a lot of 5-1 in jazz music because we're taking from the blues. But where we see that blues style evolve into more modern jazz is where we start to see more harmony. And so somebody wrote something about 6-2-5-1 all over jazz music. That's right, Charles. 6-2-5-1, 3-6-2-5-1, all that stuff in jazz music. Really what Charles is talking about is different chord progressions that make the harmony more elaborate. So jazz music has the soul of the blues, but the harmony is often more complex in jazz music. Both styles are often defined by the rhythmic treatment, which can be referred to as swing. Swinging rhythmically is when we sort of shift our offbeats to later in the beat, but we keep our strong beats locked in. And it's hard to explain without giving you an example, so I'll do that now. And in fact, let's pull up the blues scale again, and I'll play this in a straight way, and then I'll swing it, and I'm going to see if you guys can hear the difference. Everything is even as I play them all. Okay? I'm going to do the same thing here, and I want you to notice that my snaps stay the same. So here's even eighth notes, 2 notes per click. Now watch this. My snaps are not going to change. A little weird swinging quarter notes, but my point is the strong beats stay the same. They're even with my beat. But the notes in between the clicks or the beats get shifted a bit to the right, and the result is kind of this lazy feel, this kind of back and forth feel in the rhythm, which I personally am obsessed with. I love swing rhythms, and I love playing stuff in a swing feel. I hope that did not make it more confusing for you, but it's a great question, and it's one that deserves even more, I think, of a discussion. But I guess we'll leave it there for now because we are rounding up on our time here. And I just want to go through the last couple of questions here. Iman Boyle, any tips on playing left-hand chords higher and lower as you move through a progression? Iman, this is going to be like the 30-second answer. I'm going to say that you need to practice inversions. And so I'm going to just give you one chord example. Here's the C chord. Now, if you want to be able to play it higher or lower, that literally and directly means playing inversions. All of these are C major chords. It all comes down to inversion. So you need to be able to visualize all the notes that make up C major chord. And you can play them in inversions. Practice that with any chord you're working on, and it's going to unlock a bunch of range for you. Elton John, quick, I'm assuming no pedal with the upbeat blues. Oh, nice. Andrew's writing that for you. You know, the pedal is a thing that some people use in their own kind of style and preference, but I generally feel like music that is upbeat and also syncopated rhythmically gets too muddy if we add the pedal. Now, you can use it in a tasteful way, depending on what you're playing. I might consider using the pedal. Let's say I was playing a blues and I wanted to go into like a washy, like rolling kind of a solo. I might do like, you know. I might put the pedal down for something like that. But really, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the scale and some harmony. And we don't want to muddy up our scale, especially when we have intervals like this. If we have the pedal down through that, it's going to sound really gnarly and not in a good way. I mean, I guess you could argue that's a really serious blue note, and it might add to the feel, but you know. So I would say, you know, when it comes down to it, you just got to use your ear and decide what sounds good to you. But there are some basic rules that I tend to try and follow, and you nailed it on the head here, Alto, by saying. Because it's an upbeat blues, you're guessing no pedal. That's one of my rules. If something is fast and by nature syncopated and rhythmic, I don't want to get the pedal in the way. Great discussion, you guys. I would like to... Sorry, I'm just catching up on these. It's hard for me to end these because you guys always have great questions and comments. So I guess if you guys still want to talk about the blues next week, let me know in user voice. One more time, Andrew, maybe we can post that link for people who missed it. And for late comers, I'm just going to spend 15 seconds on this. We're not going to be voting on live lesson topics in the community tab on YouTube anymore. We're going to be shifting over to user voice. Some of you may be familiar with user voice if you've voted on song requests for our app. Well, we're folding in YouTube live lessons into there as well, so this community rocks. You guys are the best, and you're very active on YouTube in these chats with us every Wednesday. I so appreciate it. I highly encourage you to go to User Voice, create a free account, and make your voices heard in there. we're going to be trying to do more and more in that app, in that service. So check it out. Upvote the blues if you want to do more blues. Write your own suggestions in, or if you see someone else's suggestion that you agree with, go ahead and upvote it. And we're going to check on that weekly so that whatever we're teaching here, we know that at least the majority of you guys want it. That's important. Well, someone asked earlier, are these live lessons every Wednesday? I guess we kind of inadvertently got into that habit, and I'm fine with it. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern seems to work well, at least for this crowd. So yeah, we're going to keep working on that pattern, on that schedule. And occasionally there may be a reason to do it on an off day or skip a week. But in general, I'll let you guys know about that. In general, I think you can count on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. So with that said, I will see you guys next week, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, and maybe we can get down with some more blues.